Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
You unlock this sports talk show with the key of knowledge. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sight.
The old Soldier Field, before they redid it, it was known as the Termite Palace. That place was a piece of crap.
It really was, to be honest with you. It was a dump, and before they refurbished it, and even after they refurbished it, it's still, you can still describe it the same way, but...
A dimension of sound.
And his teammates said that he was a good teammate for the most part.
His teammates
Not all
are full
of them.
Shit.
A dimension of mind.
This is from somebody in Antioch named Peter Fitzenwell.
Oh my gosh. I've been able to keep my cool a lot easier than both of you guys.
We even practiced this.
You're entering a land of both debate and accord. A battle of wits. You've just crossed over into the Grobstein and Schuster Zone.
And welcome into a special edition of the Grobstein Schuster Zone podcast. I'm David Schuster, and he, of course, is the venerable Les Grobstein. And Les, riddle me this. Have the White Sox, Cubs, and Bears ever all been in first place at the same time as we record this podcast this morning?
We know that the baseball teams have been in first. They've actually been in first in about 2 or 3 different occasions. I could give you the years, not that it's that big of a deal.
Go ahead, give me the years.
In 67, they were both in first place for a while.
And
I think in 2008, they were close, but the Sox didn't actually win their division until the last 3 days when they had to. The Cubs had already clinched things. The White Sox, they had to win 3 games in 3 days against 3 different teams, and they had that so-called blackout game.
all right, I have a little new toy to play with.
What is her name?
It's not a vibrator.
No, you know what I'm talking about. Sounds like one of the fake crowds at some of the games.
Yeah, actually, this would be even better than that. It didn't sound like it. That was applause. So I was applauding you on this. We'll play with this a little bit during the show here, both the good and the bad, but whatever. Yes, the Cubs, White Sox, and the Bears are all in first place. I do believe for the first time ever at the same time, and obviously for that to happen, it would have to be in the month of September because, the baseball season would be coming to an end and the football season would basically be beginning. And so you're right. It hasn't happened certainly since 2008 with the Cubs and the White Sox. And I don't believe we looked it up and we couldn't find that the Bears were in first place at that same time. So obviously in 2008, I'm guessing that they started off poorly, the Bears, that season.
Well, the Bears are 1-0. And when they played at Wrigley Field, they had to open 3 or 4 of their beginning games on the road. They were not able to play at home because they had the east stands in right field, and they had to play the Cubs were always playing, so they had to play all the Bear games on the road to begin the season, except 1968. The NFL ordered them not to use the east stands and to play their opener with Washington, and they ended up losing 38-28 to the Redskins. And we knew at that game that the defense was going to be bad that year, and that cost them, at the end of the season, they lost by 1 point to Green Bay, and that cost them the division that year.
What was the last year that they played at Wrigley Field?
1970.
Okay, so 71 was the first season at Soldier Field.
Yeah, and their first game was against Pittsburgh, and they rallied and won the game in the last few seconds.
All right, I never covered a football game. Well, I didn't cover a Bears football game. You and I went to that Northwestern game against Illinois at Wrigley Field when they only played one direction.
Yeah, and they also had the press box upstairs. In those days, the press box was the one which is now the suites there.
Right.
And we remember those in those days, but the last game they played was against Green Bay, and they won it. Bart Starr got hurt early in the contest, and he was forced out, and the Bears did win that particular game, but they already had been mathematically eliminated that year.
All right, I'm off on a tangent, as I always am, but that Northwestern Illinois game when they only went the one direction because they stupidly, for lack of a better term, didn't figure out until like the day before the game that they couldn't fit the field into the configuration at Wrigley Field, and then they decided, okay, well, we're only going to go one direction, which is one of the weirdest.
It was the lawyers that forced that to happen. They were going to go.
They were scared of somebody getting hurt in the end
The
zone.
lawyers got involved the morning of the game, and they told them, you can't do this.
Still one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. But there was a running back in that game that rushed for like 200 or 300 yards.
Michael LaShore.
Okay. How many? Was it 300 yards?
Yeah, he was over 300 in that game.
Wow. So, I mean, that day was so odd in so many different
And
aspects.
Northwestern did not have their quarterback. He got hurt the last play in the previous game against Iowa. And so they didn't even have a guy who had played much. And they had that game against Illinois with backup QBs. And basically the Wildcats had no chance in that game.
All
If they would have had their full team and would have had a full quarterback, it would have been an interesting game. When they showed up without Persa or anybody else, they were dead.
All right, so I'm thinking now of different sports that have been played in different parks. Obviously, they had the college football game. The Bears played there. They also had, of course, the very first ever Winter Classic. I actually broke that story by finding out in advance that it was going to be played at Wrigley Field, and you remember that. It was New Year's Day.
Yeah,
it was ridiculously cold.
That was the Red Wings against the Blackhawks, and what happened was the whole thing was ridiculous, and they had certain amount of media people in that thing in center field, which that was ridiculous, and you couldn't even see the field. They said, we got some great seats for you. No, thank you. They said, well, you got to tell us now if you don't want it, so we'll give them to somebody else. I said, give them to someone else. I'm not sitting there.
Well, I did sit there. It was actually in that center field. I don't know what the hell it is. Where nowadays they have parties or bachelor parties.
It was ridiculous.
Nowadays.
You couldn't see any of the.
You couldn't see it. You're right. You're right. And plus, we parked about 4 miles away, and you had to take a bus to get to the damn ballpark. And we're so spoiled rotten, I hate to admit it, that usually you're able to park right there. And when the old days, the yummy donut place.
Yum donuts.
Well, I'll tell you what, that goes down with Riverview as like one of the all-time places in Chicago, the Yum Donut place. What's the hot dog place that's right down the street there on Clark? What's that called?
Oh, there's a couple of them there that are right down the street.
Oh, there's one right down the street, and Aldo will look that one up. It's about a block further north on Clark past the ballpark.
Yeah, it's just north indeed.
Anyway, let's start off with the Bears yesterday, another first-place team.
They should have lost that game.
Yeah, they should have lost that game like 100 different ways, especially at the end of the game when the poor rookie running back dropped the pass in the end zone. What was his name? DeAndre Swift, I think is his name.
It was Swift.
Okay, well, he wasn't Swift on that play, that's for damn sure. But I mean, there were so many mistakes on both teams, both coaches, that in the long run, the Bears caught a break. But that's what the Lions have been doing for years and years and years,
especially
giving
against
games
the
away.
Bears. Remember the Calvin Johnson play? He caught a touchdown pass to win the open game, and the officials all called it a touchdown except for one clown that was along the far side, and he just waved his hands. He says, no, no, no. And it took them probably about 10 minutes. The only person in Soldier Field that thought that was a good call by that idiot was Lovie Smith. And what do you expect him to say?
Isolated with Zachary Bowman. Blitz coming. They throw it up to Johnson. Into the corner. Touchdown, Calvin Johnson. Unbelievable throw by Hill. And a miraculous catch. Leaping high over Bowman by Calvin Johnson. And the Lions, who had one, are they saying, wait a minute, are now they overruling and saying he did not get it in bounds? The officials gathered down in the corner after the initial indication of touchdown.
The ruling on the field is that the runner did not complete the catch during the process of the catch. It is an incomplete pass. It will be third down Detroit.
Well, and then fortunately or unfortunately, it went against the Lions that day, and that became the new rule in football about what the definition of a catch is, which to me, I don't know. I mean,
they still don't get it right. They still don't. And the other stupid things, I mean, the Lions' 1980 Thanksgiving Day, Dave Williams returned the opening kickoff of overtime for a touchdown. That's still the shortest overtime in NFL history. And it was a blizzard outside.
And this is the first one that
there were
there's
about
ever
80,000
been
people
in
there.
this
They were
stadium.
noisy.
Vince Evans with the touchdown that tied it with no time left on the clock. Murray's kick fielded by Williams at the 5. Williams breaks out of the pack. Dave Williams to the 30, Touchdown, Chicago. They win it on the kickoff after overtime.
And after that touchdown was scored, you just heard nothing but silence, and they tiptoed up the steps and went out into the blizzard.
Tiptoe through the tulips. No. Do you remember what his wife's name was, Tiny Tim?
Yeah, Miss Vicky.
Very good, Les. It can't stump the grabber. But we got some good questions later on in the podcast, and we'll try and do just that. But anyway, the Bears game yesterday, there were so many mistakes. I thought, and I just did a podcast with Greg Gabriel, I thought the big turning point in the game, there were so many of them, but the one where the Lions went for the field goal with 4 minutes to go, they're up by 10.
A dumb-ass, stupid thing. All they had to do was punt the ball. They could have pinned the Bears deep. Their punter was actually very good in that game.
Yeah, pin him down.
And then afterward, he was asked about it, and he tried to defend it. There was no defending that. Even if they would have made the kick, they still would have ended up losing by a couple of points.
Yes. I mean, here's what you do, and we're in agreement on this one. You punt the ball. There's 4 minutes to go.
Less than that.
There would have been less than 4 minutes after the punt, of course. You would have had them pinned deep in their territory. I think they had 1 or 2 timeouts. I can't remember right now. They would have had to go on the length of the field at least once, maybe twice. And I don't know. The Lions are just such a stupid team. And then even when they got the ball back and they're still up by 3 at this point, they're facing a third down play. The clock is running down. At that point, I think the Bears only had 1 timeout left, and there's Stafford on third down throwing a pass that's deflected. It's picked off, and then Anthony Miller catches a nice touchdown pass by Trubisky after that.
Never should have gotten that far.
Never should have gotten, absolutely. So the Lions handed the game, and then of course the kid drops the easy touchdown pass at the end of the contest.
And if he would have caught that, there would have been about 5 seconds left, and the Bears would have had no chance.
Yeah, so
they need a touchdown. Field goal won't get it done. 11 seconds to go. Stafford downfield, and his pass is dropped by Swift. He was in the end zone. The rookie linebacker, or the rookie running back, DeAndre Swift, could not hold on. That would have been the touchdown to put the Lions in front.
Wow.
Instead, it's 3rd and 10.
Trubisky was awful through 3 quarters. He was good in the 4th quarter. You can't take that away from him. But then again, he was given opportunities to be good in the 4th quarter. And on top of all that, the Lions at that point were playing with 2nd and 3rd string players because they're starting cornerbacks, some of them who weren't even ready to play the game to begin with.
And Galladay was hurt and he didn't play at all for them. And how much of a difference would he have made, the former NIU Husky?
Yeah, and then of course earlier in the contest it was Jamie Collins who went out after...
Oh, he put his helmet in the official's chest.
I know, and I know that's an automatic rule, Les. I get it, but it's a stupid automatic rule.
Yeah, but if you touch the official,
I know it's automatic.
You're gone.
I get it.
They had to kick him out, and that was it. The guy flipped his flag up there high as the sky.
I'm looking up right now. It's a high sky. Oh, that's where that comes from, the term high sky.
My, oh, my.
Oh, me, oh, my. The Collins was only trying to demonstrate. He wasn't trying to really headbutt the guy. I get the rule. They played by the rules. I think the rule is stupid.
No, it's not stupid. It's worse than stupid. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's typical NFL, and they've got it in some dumb, stupid things in the other sports, too. But this one, absolutely ridiculous. And again, Detroit still should have won the game. They still handed that thing to the Bears on a silver platter, a platinum platter, bronze, gold, you name it. It was ridiculous.
How about pewter?
Yeah, that too.
Okay. It's so interesting because...
That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' secondary color, by the way, pewter.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's not like pewter?
They had orange, and then they switched to pewter, which is more of like a reddish color.
Okay. I don't want to say it's interesting, but it is. The Lions in the opening game last season, and Aldo helped me out with this, did they not blow an 18-point, was it 4th quarter lead in that game?
They did.
That is correct. 18 points, and the game ended in a tie.
Oh, my God. So in back-to-back season openers, they blew combined 35-point leads in the 4th quarter. I mean, you should fold after that. I mean, seriously.
Right now, if everybody was talking about everything here in Chicago, whatever. Can you imagine what the Lions fans were saying at the end of that game yesterday?
Oh, they're swearing their asses off. I mean, the difference between talk radio and podcast radio for Chicago and Detroit flipped because of the winner of the game. I mean, if the Bears lost the game, we are ripping the crap out of them, which we're sort of doing
They
anyway.
deserve to be ripped anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of bonehead things also. I mean, the fact that the terrible sequence by the Bears at the end of the first half.
That was terrible.
Where they basically, went for something when they should have been able to run out the clock themselves, and they gave the ball back to Detroit.
Detroit gets
scored.
a touchdown, and they scored first to start the third quarter,
so you basically gave him 14 unanswered points. That was really stupid. Trubisky's accuracy early in the contest was really terrible.
He might have been voted Bum of the Week yesterday, and then they won the game, so nobody could end up saying anything.
It's really interesting because right at halftime, if you were watching the game, I was, obviously, Tony Gonzalez on Fox said, he should be yanked, meaning Trubisky, and you should put in Foles.
But you have to make a change, though, don't you? I mean, I know it's the first half of the season, but still, Nick Foles, he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's not the flashy quarterback, but we've seen enough out of Trubisky, I think, at this point where you might want to go ahead and make this change sooner rather than later.
Even after the game, I saw a lot of commentators on TV who said they should start Foles this coming week.
Yeah, and
that's not going to happen.
Foles cannot run the ball like Trubisky can. People can say anything. Had Foles played yesterday, they would have lost.
Yeah, did you also notice Adrian Peterson had some nice runs to his credit?
Oh, you think?
But Dick Stockton, man, I thought he was going to get a hotel room with Adrian Peterson after the game. It's like, oh my God, it was such a love affair. I was getting a little uncomfortable after a while.
Well, was he once married to Leslie Visser?
Not once. I think he still is.
No, I think they separated and got divorced.
Oh, she's on the open market?
She has been for about 4 or 5 years, maybe longer.
Right? She's such a nice person.
And she's a good friend, no question.
She's such a nice lady. Actually, he's a good person too. A really nice guy.
He's not a bad guy.
He's a good guy, but I just, no offense, I don't really want him to do broadcasting my games anymore. He's a little past his prime, I guess, so to speak. Anyway, yesterday also, and the Bears are 1-0. Good for them. The bottom line in sports, much less the NFL, of course, is just win. So they won the game.
And what are the Giants going to do to them this coming Sunday? They run the football pretty well. They still have a lot of open holes in their game as well, but I don't know who's going to end up winning it. The Bears are going to at least be at home.
All right, well, we're recording this on Monday afternoon, and the Giants are playing their opener later this evening, so we really can't talk too much about the Giants, but you're right, they have Saquon Barkley. And by the way, there was no running back in football up until right now, going into the 2 games this evening, who rushed for 100 yards in a game. So the days when we used to have Gale Sayers or Walter Payton or Jim Brown or, Emmett, Smith or any of those guys who would...
Rick Caceres, crying out loud.
Anybody who would rush for 100 or 200 yards in games, those are long gone. They're gone.
Well, again, as long as you have coaches like Matt Nagy, I can't believe they ran the ball as much as they did on Sunday. Unbelievable. And
successful,
too. And he doesn't like to run the ball.
Well, he liked to run it yesterday, and they had an average of 5.3 yards a carry. And if you do that, you're going to make, like Woody Hayes, the old Woody Hayes would be really happy. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They got 5.3 yards, and there was no dust because, well, actually, you know what? They had that rotten AstroTurf in Ford Field, and the dirt is always coming up.
Pebbles.
Is it pebbles?
Yeah, rubber pebbles.
Not pebbles from the Flintstones, is it? Okay, just checking. Will you throw in pebbles into this podcast? Okay. Aldo, you're so sick like I am. You remember all this shit from our youth.
Do you want Bam Bam in the podcast?
Yes. Bam Bam. Bam Bam.
And he used to kick the crap out of everybody 10 times his size.
That's right, because he was Bam Bam. All right, anyway, obviously the Bears were one of the stories yesterday, but the other big story, listen, the 2 baseball teams, the Cubs and the White Sox are both going to the postseason.
And they both have a no-hitter this year.
That's right. And Les, I did a little bit of my research here. We all know that's the first time in sports history that 2 players from Chicago threw a no-hitter in the same year.
In Chicago, we don't know if it ever happened with the Yankees and either plus the Dodgers or Giants back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, we could look that one up also, but the fact that, it was the first time that has ever happened for the Cubs and White Sox to have no-hitters in the same season. Do you also, and I know you know this, Les, that Alec Mills, who threw the no-hitter yesterday.
He is 1 out away. Deep breath. 3 balls and a strike. Up the middle. Baez has it. It's It's a no-hitter! The former college walk-on has made history.
First of all, he was a walk-on in college. So, I mean, here's a guy who came out of nowhere, even to get into the major leagues. He had never thrown a shutout or a complete game in the majors. He only had one complete game ever in the minors.
The Crew,
and he throws a
basically,
no-hitter.
after the way the Crew blew that game on Saturday night in the ninth inning, then Sunday they did not even show up. That was ridiculous. They shouldn't have even been in Miller Park that day. That was ridiculous. And you had Hader, who does give up a lot of home runs, and he gives up two of them, including the one to Hayward on Saturday night, and they pulled that game out. Then he gives up another solo blast after that, and from that point on, you could see the Brewers, they kind of quit.
All right, we're going to hear from Alec Mills in just a second here, but the whole idea of no-hitters popped into my head as I was watching yesterday's game, thinking that we're going to be doing this podcast today, and the very first thing that came into my mind are, how many no-hitters have you seen in person?
First one was Kenny Holtzman's first no-hitter. I didn't see his second because that was on the road at Riverfront Stadium. I also saw the White Sox, they got shut down. Greg Luzinski, he ended up making the last out when the White Sox got a no-hitter, and that was in the game where the Detroit Tigers no-hit him.
You're talking about Jack Morris.
Yes, I am.
All right. I'm sure all the ones, I think most of the ones that I've seen, you've probably seen also. So I'm going to go over the ones that I've seen in person. I've seen a lot on TV over the years by both Cubs and Sox. Holtzman, both of his no-hitters were on the road.
No, Holtzman's first one was at Wrigley Field.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm wrong.
That was the one.
No, I'm sorry.
That was the one where Hank Aaron hit one that we thought was across the street.
You're right,
and
and it went into the well. No, okay, I'm sorry.
And Billy Williams stayed with it.
I got my Cub pitchers mixed up. Both of Jake Arrieta's no-hitters were on the road in Cincinnati and Los Angeles.
Correct.
All right, you're right about Holtzman. I was wrong about that one. Anyway, and then there's another no-hitter for the White Sox. You remember Joe Colley, not the writer, Joe Colley, the pitcher who threw the no-hitter on the road. I think it was. I could be wrong about this.
It wasn't a no-hit, no-run game though. Runs scored. He was.
But it's a no-hitter.
He was the wild man. But Major League Baseball stopped.
I know they changed it.
They took it away.
He walked 8, I think, in that game. And by the time they got to the ninth inning, you were so tired of him walking the bases loaded, it's like the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, that you didn't even realize this bozo's got a no-hitter going.
And boy, did La Russa hate his guts. When La Russa made his first appearance in Chicago as manager of Oakland, and Cowley pitched that game against Oakland and for the White Sox, and he won, the first thing La Russa said is, no questions about Joe Cowley. None.
Oh, what a nice guy. Can you imagine David Ross saying that about Alec Mills yesterday? No questions about Alec Mills. No, I don't think he would have. He was really proud of him after the fact. Anyway, I've only seen one no-hitter in person at Wrigley Field, and it was not by a Cubs pitcher.
Which one did you see? It was by the Phillies?
Yes. Cole Hamels.
Yeah, and that was the last game he ever pitched for the Phillies.
That is correct, and then he was traded.
He was traded almost the very next day.
That was 2015, and he was really good that day, and we got a chance to talk to him after the game. He came into the rain room. Remember the rain room at Wrigley Field?
That was also the first time that anybody had no-hit the Cubs in any kind of game since Koufax's perfect game in 1965.
Okay, so that's the only no-hitter I've seen at Wrigley Field in person. You saw Holtzman, you said?
Yep.
Were you a fan that day? You must have been a fan.
I was a fan that day. I was 17 years old. I was sitting in the upper deck. I had a great seat. And then the knuckle curveball, and they ended up in 1972 getting the no-hitter. And it was a real stunner. But
Bert Hooton?
It was indeed. And the guy, and he gave up one of Reggie Jackson's 3 homers when he hit the 3 in that one game in 77 when the Dodgers got beat. But there was no doubt. Hooton, he had that knuckle curveball. Not many people in baseball had seen it. And eventually, everybody else caught up to it.
Yeah.
And then later that season, Milt Pappas threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, and it would have been a perfect game if it wasn't for Bruce Fremming. And he not only blew the 3-2 pitch, he blew the 2-2 pitch. That was also in there and should have been a strike.
Okay.
He blew 2 pitches in a row, and to this day, he still defends his calls. And the late Milt Pappas, who I talked to many a times while he's still alive, He never, ever, ever,
He
ever
never forgave him.
him.
Absolutely.
No.
All right, so that was 72. I didn't see that in person. I was in an altered state, if you will, in Carbondale in 72. Even in the summer, I might have been, even if I came home, I might have still been in an altered state.
You and Hoffman were in another planet, both of you.
Yes. It was a Pluto? Because I don't know if Pluto's a planet or not.
It still is, whether they want to admit it or not. It is a planet. All these BS pieces of crap to say it's just a baby planet. You know what? Fuck them. It is a planet. There's 9 planets, and that's one.
By the way,
Neptune is number 8.
It's not a baby planet. It's a dwarf planet.
No, I don't care what the fuck these jagoffs call it. It's a definite, it's a planet, period.
See, now I know why you love doing these podcasts with me, because you can swear like a sailor with me where you can't do this on the air. Anyway, so continuing on at Wrigley Field, and we went to so many of these games where there were no-hitters that were busted up in the 9th inning. And I'm going to recite, see if you can remember some of these.
Okay.
Do you remember Chuck Rainey?
Yeah, he had a no-hitter going. This was in 1983, I want to say.
Oh, my God. This is what you're really good at, Les.
He was really pitching well that day. The team sucked, and yet he threw a no-no, and then...
Well, he didn't throw it. It got busted up.
He laid one in there. Clean, solid base hit.
Okay, do you remember who the hitter was?
There were a couple, but
well, there were a couple. There was only one.
No,
it was busted up by only one.
A couple were broken up in the 19th.
No, I know that, but all right, I'll tell you, because this is a real trivia question. It was Eddie Milner.
Yeah, and he was a pretty good hitting pitcher, and he used to kill the Cubs. But just about everybody killed the Cubs.
All right, then there was another one. I remember this one too. In 1995, Frank Castillo.
Yeah, he had one going, and then...
2 outs in the 9th inning.
He laid one in there, solid base hit up the middle.
Yep, and then even a further one in the 9th inning, and this is 10 years ago, Ted Lilly had a no-hitter into the 9th inning.
Ted Lilly, also, the day that Carlos Zambrano pitched his no-hitter in Milwaukee against the Houston Astros. Lilly then pitched the next day, and he had a no-hitter going into the 6th inning before the Stros actually. And Houston... They were worried about their family members. They were worried about their friends who were stuck back in Houston. Yeah, they had that hurricane and everything else going. And we know what Zambrano did in the first of 2 games. The second game, Lilly, and he ended up getting the win, and he had a no-no till about the 6th inning till the Stros finally got a hit off of him.
Let me tell you a story about the Zambrano no-hitter up in Milwaukee. And by the way, there's only been 2 no-hitters at Miller Park. They're both by Cub pitchers. How weird is that? But... Zambrano, when he threw that no-hitter, was a Sunday afternoon. It was against Houston, and you're right. The Astros didn't even want to be there. They were more worried about what was going on.
It couldn't have been a Sunday because they had a game the next day.
No, it was a Sunday, Les, because it was a Sunday for sure.
Then it would have had to have been Sunday, Monday.
Well, maybe it was.
Because they had a game up there the next day.
Okay, I'm telling you, it was a Sunday because I'm in Cleveland that day with the Bears. And I'm coming back after the game, and they played late afternoon, if I remember, something like that. Anyway, I'm coming back. I'm at the airport. I'm getting on the plane. We're following that, the no-hitters into the 6th inning, the 7th inning, the 8th inning, whatever. I'm on the plane, and Jesse Rogers was in Milwaukee, and he's on the phone with me telling me what's going on. And the plane is starting to taxi to take off, and the stewardess comes down the aisle, and she goes,
"You got to take that and turn it off."
That's what she said. And I go, "I can't. I got to know if he pitches the no-hitter or not." She was being really strict with me, okay? Turn the damn thing off. I said, okay. I didn't turn it off, of course. I sort of snuck the phone into my shirt pocket or something like that.
That's like my transistor radios when I was a kid under the pillow.
That's exactly what it was. And since I had a lot of training from doing that when I was a kid, this wasn't that far from it. Anyway, it got to the point where there was 2 outs and the thing is starting to go down the runway. And at that point, even I'm ready to turn the thing off because I know it's not right and I'm going to lose reception anyway. And I think back in those days, I had one of those bigger phones anyway. So, finally, the last out occurred, and Jesse tells me there's a no-hitter, and we're just about to go up in the air, okay? We're running down the...
lucky you didn't get arrested.
That's right, whatever. But I didn't have to wear a mask, I will say that.
Not in those days.
Anyway, so, yeah, the last out occurred. We found out he had the no-hitter, and then we took off to come home, and it was a Sunday, Les, for what it's worth. And Was I right about that, Aldo? Okay. And then I made the announcement to all the people, because there was a lot of people on the plane, a lot of reporters from Chicago, and they were counting on me to tell them if Zambrano had the no-hitter or not. I made the announcement, he pitched the no-hitter, and turning off my phone, clap, 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 and the stewardess gave me the meanest look. And I didn't eat anything or drink anything on that flight, even though it was a short flight, because I thought I'd be poisoned.
She was probably a White Sox or a Cardinal fan.
Could be, who knows? All right, so that's the Cubs. Now the White Sox, and you're right. The first one I saw was 1984. Jack Morris had the no-hitter.
Yep.
I think it was a Saturday afternoon. I could be wrong about that. And this is one of the things I'll always remember about that. Up until one other time later on during my career, it's the only other time that a player came up to the press box. They brought Jack Morris up to the press box.
I remember that.
And I thought, okay, well, this is the way it's going to be going forward. No, never saw a player in the press box ever again until one other time much further down the road. But Jack Morris did throw that no-hitter, and I've seen Jack Morris on a couple of occasions subsequently over the years, and I remind him of that, and he said, yeah, that was really unusual in itself. So that was the first one. The only other one that was pitched against the White Sox in the ballpark there was by the Twins. Do you remember what pitcher it was?
The Twins, it could not have been Jim Cott, because this was way after.
I'll even give you the year. So no, Jim Cott was way, way, way back. A great fielding pitcher, by the way.
A great fielding and hitting pitcher.
Yes, 2011.
Don't remember who it was.
Francisco Liriano. And he walked a bunch of guys also.
Didn't the White Sox end up winning the division that year?
Ooh.
Or at least at that time they were in first place.
We'll look that one up. Of course, the two that stand out, the only two that I've seen by a Sox pitcher in Chicago, I mean, Joel Horland pitched one way, way, way back, but I wasn't around then.
Yeah, the second to last play of the game, the guy was safe at first. The umpire called him out, and it was a terrible call.
What about replays? Oh, there were no replays.
They didn't have them back then. I was listening to Bob Elson call a no-hitter that was thrown against the Sox on the radio. This had to be about 1962 or 63. They were playing Boston, and it was Bill Mambo Kett.
Oh, yeah, from the Red Sox?
Yep.
Okay. Didn't he also pitch for Montreal later on?
Maybe.
Okay.
But at that time, Montreal didn't even exist.
No, I know that.
This was still in the 60s, and Montreal didn't come around until 64.
The 2011 White Sox finished in third.
I'm not saying where they finished. I'm saying at that time they might have been in first place.
Okay.
Though.
I don't remember 2011. Anyway, of course, the two big ones were the two Mark Burley ones in 2007.
I was at the perfect game there.
Well, I was at both of them.
Yeah.
Yes, I was,
The other one I was not at.
Okay, I was at both of them and working at the Score at the time, and we did interviews with him on the field after the game in both situations. Yeah, I mean, Mark Burley gave us so many highlights.
There isn't a nicer guy on the planet than Mark Burley.
He really was. I mean, he was, he was always cordial to us, even after games when he didn't win. But, certainly the perfect game, and who can ever forget the catch by Dwayne Wise? I mean, no one will ever forget that.
They still have the catch out there on the wall.
Absolutely. Now, the only other no-hitter in semi-recent vintage by a White Sox pitcher, of course, was by Philip Umber.
And after that, there was a perfect game in Seattle, and most people don't even, but within a week afterward, people didn't even remember who the hell he was.
Well, he's a real trivia question. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and he didn't hang around much longer in the majors after that.
Sure didn't.
The reason that one stands out, it happened on my birthday. And it also happened while we were all at the Bulls game. It was a Bulls playoff game that day, and I don't remember who they were playing.
Mavericks.
But, after we did our job or did whatever, we came back into the press room, and we're all watching Philip Umber complete the perfect game.
I was at Allstate Arena when that happened. I was doing a Chicago Rush game, and I basically had the computer running, and he had 2 outs, and they got the last out, and he threw a perfect game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, a perfect game. There's not many guys, obviously, who have thrown perfect games over the years. You think of Catfish Hunter, you think of David Cohn, Sandy Koufax had the perfect game against the Cubs, right?
That is correct, and Bob Henley threw a one-hitter against the Dodgers that same night. So he threw a one-hitter, and by the way, the one hit that Henley threw that had nothing to do with the run that was scored, Lou Johnson, he scored, he knocked in the only run, and little did we know a couple of years later he'd be a Cub. But at that point, nobody had any clue that They almost had, and at that point, a couple of Dodger fans said, boy, I almost hoped that blow was going to be caught. It would have been kind of cool to have a double no-hitter, and they almost did.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from the guy who threw the no-hitter yesterday. Where, of course, we're talking about Alec Mills, and congratulations to him. I always wonder, because you're supposed to do something for your catcher, buy him a Rolex, take him out to dinner. I don't know what they do for him.
I don't really know what to say, obviously. I think
I think that was Alec Mills, wasn't it? Oh, is that premature something or other? There's pills for that, I'm told. We'll give you a chance to cue that one up.
You got to go to either Osco or Walgreens.
All right, let's hear from Alec Mills. After the game yesterday, he really was at a loss for words.
I don't really know what to say, obviously. I think it's kind of hitting me now. Just very overwhelming. Obviously a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. And I'll always remember it.
What I'm always going to remember is he has these really ugly goggles that he wears during the game. But afterwards, and he's always got a cool demeanor about him. He does have sort of like that Kyle Hendricks persona about him. He really, just seems very steady, but he says, no, I was nervous.
I can promise you it was not a slow heartbeat. Kind of had to take a seat and calm myself down. Actually went to the locker room in between 8th and 9th inning and told several guys it was tough. I had to take a lot of deep breaths and calm myself down and try to get into a good mindset to go out and attack.
And finally, what about pitching up at Miller Park, which, again, I'm not a fan of Miller Park. I know you are less than so many others are. I'm just not I'm in the minority in this one. But anyway, what about pitching without any fans in the ballpark?
Having an audience there to watch would have been something special, but at the same time, I think, the guys I wanted there celebrating with me were still there. Just wanted to be able to celebrate with the team as well.
He will go down with Philip Umber, to be perfectly honest with you, of trivia names that when you think about it 10, 15, 20 years down the road is, he did?
Who the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
People are wondering. And again, you're talking about two guys again. Lucas Giolito, he'll be probably remembered a lot more than what you're going to end up seeing done with that Cub one yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Giolito will be a staple for the White Sox going forward. Well, by the way, we didn't talk much about the White Sox. The Cubs, as we record this one, are up 4 games over St. Louis in their division. The White Sox are up 1 game in their division over Minnesota. The White Sox magic number for a playoff spot is down to 6. They're going to be a postseason team.
No doubt, and they just wiped out the Motown Kitty Cats over the weekend.
What they have done, to their credit, listen, you're always supposed to beat up the teams that you're supposed to beat up. And against Detroit and Kansas City and Pittsburgh, I mean, they've won a boatload of games. And they have a losing record against Minnesota and Cleveland in their own division. They're playing Minnesota starting tonight for the next 4 days. We'll see how they fare against them. But, the White Sox, Tim Anderson's going to win another batting title. He leads the majors again at 362. Abreu is second in the majors, I believe, in home runs and first in RBIs. I mean, the White Sox have been an incredible story.
They're a fun team to watch, no matter who you root for or who you don't root for. This team is a lot of fun. The Cubs right now, to be honest with you, and I'll be totally honest, they're not as much fun to watch as the Sox are because they got a lot of guys that are hitting in the lower 2s and a couple below the Mendoza line. Yes, a couple of pitchers have been terrific. We know that Darvish has been terrific, and Hendricks has been very, very good. There have been others that have been kind of blah. I think that division of theirs stinks.
Well, it does, and they're fortunate that they're in that division this season. All right, Les, I'm fortunate that I get a chance to do this podcast with you. Let's take a break here right now. When we come back, we have our 2 special segments, Stump the Grobber, and boy, we got a lot of people who called in. It's hard to read some of these names, but I'll try and figure them out. And we also have our
Freddie
famous...
the Freeloader and Fred Finagle?
Yes, that might be one of them. Well, we'll see. And then we also have our famous name segment. We'll be back right after this.
Hey everyone, I'm Chad Gordon.
And I'm Ryan Lever. We're the hosts of the Friendly Confines podcast.
Each week we'll bring you the latest Cubs news from the fans' perspective with some of the biggest names in sports.
Joe Buck, welcome to the Friendly Confines with Chad and Ryan.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm happy to do it.
Pat Hughes, welcome to the 7th inning.
Happy to be here, Chad.
It is Len Casper.
You got it, Ryan. Chad, happy to be with you guys.
The Hawk, Andre Dawson.
What a modesty, pleasure. I'm doing fine, thank you.
We're also excited to bring you new episodes as part of the Barroom Network.
So if you're a Cubs fan or even just a baseball fan,
be sure to check out the Friendly Confines podcast every week on the Barroom Network.
Are you interested in winning some money? Well, get a bunch of friends together, start a fantasy football league, and then listen to the Fantasy Football Goon because he'll take you to victory. Fantasy Football Goon, every week here on the Barroom Network.
And welcome back to the podcast. I'm David Schuster. He, of course, is Les Grobstein. And Les, we got a lot of people who have called in today, or written in, I should say, to stump the grobber. We'll see if they get a chance to win a shirt like our good buddy Nick Shapkowski. And by the way, ask Nick when you see him at the station, because we did mail it out. I'm just sort of curious if he's going to model it.
I never see him. I do my shows these days at home.
I'll text him. Anyway, all right, let's get to Stump the Grobber.
You're about to witness the work of an eidetic. That is someone whose memories are more vivid beyond that of most mortals. Today, we will put that to the test. This is Stump the Grobber.
We should get a special sponsor for that. Who should sponsor Stump the Grobber? What would be appropriate?
A couple of the prescriptions that they have over at Walgreens or at Osco.
Like Imodium?
Oh, something like that. Oh, my God. Imodium. Which kind? Because they have about 3 different different types of Imodium now.
There's 3 different types?
Yep.
Seriously?
Some are stronger than the others.
Really? I mean, it's just the net result that counts. Don't tell me they come in flavors.
Well, and they've also got Metamucil there too.
I'm sure they do. All right. Anyway, our first one comes from somebody in Lincolnshire. Let me see if I can read this name. Maxipad. Okay.
What does the middle initial E stand for? I'm glad that it's you guys that are... It took you guys a while to actually get that. I got it immediately. You guys didn't.
Okay. All right, well, let's continue on. Anyway, the MaxiPad writes in, what 2 Chicago Bulls were the number 1 draft picks overall in their history? 2 players who were number 1 overall picks.
Well, Derrick Rose was one.
That's right.
And the other would have been Elton Brand.
That is correct. Ding, 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 ding. Hold on. Do I have anything on my sound machine here?
There you go.
Let's see. Here's a burp.
How many people would have said Michael Jordan, and he wasn't even first or second?
No, he was number 3, of course. Let's see. What else do I have on here? I'm just playing with this now. All right, be quiet. You know what? Unfortunately, I've heard that one too many times in my life.
Tell him to turn off the gumball machine.
All right, let's see what this next one is. Let's see here.
You guys are losing it. At least I could keep my cool here. You guys have absolutely lost it.
All right, this is from somebody in Antioch. Somebody by the name...
Antioch.
Somebody by...
Remember the Blackhawk goalie? They had Auntie Rama. On days that he was terrible, we said that they got rid of Auntie, and so they brought in Uncle.
Okay. That's not as funny as this.
I'm just trying to get you guys to stop losing it and regain your equilibrium.
I don't think I'm going to be able to. All right, this is from somebody in Antioch named Peter Fitzenwell.
Oh, my gosh. I've been able to keep my cool a lot easier than both of you guys.
We even practiced this.
And I haven't, and I'm still able to chill.
Okay. The last Blackhawk player to win Rookie of the Year award.
That would have probably have been Steve Larmer.
Nope. Later.
Much later.
Yeah. Semi-recently, in fact.
It wasn't Kane or Taze.
Nope. After them.
Later than them?
Mr. Fitzenwell wants to know.
Who was it?
Artemi Panarin.
Panarin, yeah. The bread man.
Yeah, who's made a lot of money now playing for the New York Rangers. All right, this next one is... Oh, God.
You can't even read it now?
Well, the writing is really small, but it's somebody
That's
from
a bad excuse.
Buffalo Grove named Sharon. I can just picture her. Share a dick. Okay, Miss Dick.
Wait a minute! I went seriously. I went to grade school with a girl named Sharon Dick, and her last name was Dick.
Oh, good. I went to high school with a guy. His name is Harry Weiner. Oh, if I were him, I would have sued my parents.
You sure it wasn't Weiner?
No, well, maybe, but anyway, the last White Sox pitcher to win the Cy Young Award.
Let me think on that one. I should know.
Aldo got this one right off the bat.
Oh.
Last Cy Young. It's going in one ear and out the other. Who is it? You're strumming a guitar. You're not. It could not have been Jack McDowell.
It could have been. It could be. It might be. It is.
Jack McDowell. He absolutely. He could not get along real well with a couple of other people. I mean, he got into a couple of. He got knocked out one time in a fight with Eddie Vedder, who was his buddy.
Eddie Vedder knocked him out.
No, someone who Eddie Vedder that knew this person, and I've met Eddie Vedder several times.
It wasn't John Roper again, was it?
No. John Roper used to take a bat and swing it like crazy. The next person that gets close to me, I'm gonna just absolutely clobber you with this thing.
Rerun.
I got a question for Les. That girl that you went to high school with, her name was Sharon Dick. Was she related to Helda Dick?
Absolutely not. And her last name really was Dick. It was not Richard.
What kind of thing are you going to say? Is this suitable for all audiences?
Absolutely not.
Oh, no way.
All right, two more. Actually, three more. This is from somebody in Lamont, but gentlemen.
He didn't even start reading it yet, and he's losing it. It wasn't even funny.
Gentleman from Lamont, his name is Willie Layer.
These whole things are just... You guys have just completely lost it.
All right, how many seasons was George Halas the coach of the Chicago Bears?
Well, he was the coach like on 3 different occasions.
That's right.
He kept going in and out.
Add him up.
Boy, I would have to say he was probably the head coach about 45 times.
Pretty close, 40. 40 years as the head coach. It's got to be a record. No one else has coached that long.
No, and by the way, he won more games. I mean, Shula got the most games total, but he was with 2 different teams. He was with the Colts and with the Dolphins. Shula was not the same guy. With Halas, he at least did it with 1 team.
Did he coach with the Decatur Staleys too? I mean, was
Yes.
that was part of it?
He
Okay.
bought the team when they were still in Decatur.
Okay. All right, no more funny names.
By the way, Don Shula is second with 33 years. Halas is first with 4.
Yeah, but Shula did it with 2 teams.
And you're right, Les. I mean, Halas
He did it with 1 team.
But Halas took some years off. There were some other coaches in the interim. Like if he would take a year or 2 off, and then he'd get pissed off at whoever the coach was because it wasn't as good as him. So it's funny because
I know what he would say. Not still.
when I first broke in, Halas was. I don't know if he was still the coach, but he had a
his last year's coach was 67.
Okay, so he wasn't the coach, but he was still chairman of the board or whatever he was. Right. There was a press conference that we had. It was my very beginning when I first started in his office downtown, and I don't remember where that
Jackson.
was. On Jackson, and it was to introduce. It might have been to introduce Ditka.
55 East Jackson.
Thank you. I don't think they still have that, but whatever. All right, Les.
The office is there. The Bears haven't been there for a long time.
Okay. 83 playoff game, White Sox and Orioles. We talked about this in the past. Britt Burns in Game 4 was the losing pitcher. Who was the winning pitcher?
That was a game, the one that Tito Landrum hit the home
Saturday
run. Saturday
afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, I should know who this is because I was at every game in that series, including the first 2 that were in Baltimore, and then the next 2 were at Comiskey Park.
I love when he doesn't know the answer. He just fills in the blanks with other stuff.
That's good. Clever.
I mean, he is good at that.
No, I know who it is, and I just can't think of the name.
Should I help you a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay. Left-handed reliever.
I don't know. Who was it?
Shared the same name as, I think, another pitcher on that staff with the same last name, I think.
I should know who that is, but I don't.
Tip Martinez.
Tippy Martinez. Yeah, and they had Dennis Martinez.
Okay, that's right. So I was right about that part, too. All right, and the last one is not really a question, but Aldo wanted to know this one, so we're going to ask you. How do you compute the WAR figure in Major League Baseball?
I don't have a clue. I don't give a shit.
That's the right answer.
I don't. That stuff means nothing to me. People that invented that stuff, it's a bunch of crap. And I never want to know how you compute it.
Okay, I have no idea how you do this either, to be honest with you, because we were only talking about this earlier because we couldn't figure out, and I've never been able to figure this out, how to figure out a quarterback rating.
That's another one I don't give a shit about.
Neither do I, to be perfectly honest, although, I mentioned it on when we have to do voicers or whatever to recap a game or something like that. I remember there was one time, I think it was Cade McNown.
Cade McClown?
Yeah, Cade McClown. See, I told you, Les loves doing these podcasts more than you know, Aldo, because his personality really comes out.
I'm one of the few people that actually got along with him, but he was a real full-blooded piece of crap.
Okay. Anyway, I remember one time where he just was so awful in a game at
San
Soldier
Francisco
Field.
Game?
Well, that one also, but I wasn't at that one. It was one at Soldier Field, and I was doing voicers for, I don't know, for NFL Network or somebody. And he had, I remember it was like 0.8 or something like that for his quarterback rating, which means he might have been like 1 of 13 throwing with 2 interceptions. No, it's not. But I just remember I went on and I said, oh my God, this quarterback has got a breathalyzer. Quarterback rating, 0.8 or something like that. But I just don't know how you figure out a quarterback rating. I have no idea how you do it.
New Year's Eve of the last game of the regular season in 2006, and then they went on to the Super Bowl 41 that year. That was really ridiculous, too. Rex Grossman, he was looking forward to going out for New Year's Eve.
That's right.
And NBC changed it. He had a quarterback rating of 0.0. He might as well have been John Blutarski.
Mr. Blutarski, 0.0.
Mr. Blutarski, and what was the line that he said after that?
Well,
this is no way to go through life or something?
No, that was with a couple of others. He goes, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Right. All right, anyway, let's do our final segment here.
Boy, is this great.
Are you talking about this podcast?
No, we're talking about that same movie.
I know that, I'm teasing.
You enter this final segment of the show at your own risk, because what you might think of someone or someplace may not match your reality. Memories could be shattered or confirmed. This is Names and Places.
Names and places, Les, and we'll try and figure out a sponsor one of these days for this segment as well, where I tell you a name and you and I both recite whatever memories we have in regards to that person or venue. And the first person, Jay Cutler.
He doesn't suck. He's worse. I mean, Mr. Interception. What a wonderful person he was. And again, he's been in and out of marriages big time.
Well, only one. Only one.
Yeah, it might as well be 10. I mean, the bottom line
you
is...
You and I have cornered the market on that one.
The bottom line is Jay Cutler, they got rid of Orton and several top draft picks and stuff to get him. It was a piece of crap. It was a terrible deal, and everybody's... And we have a couple of people that you used to work with, and I still do work with, say, well, he's still the Bears' best quarterback, the rating showed... Bullshit. I don't give a shit how many numbers he has above everybody else. He sucks. He's terrible. And the Bears, they basically, they have pretty much a long line of some of the worst quarterbacks in the history of the game of football. And Jay Cutler belongs on there.
He is known as a coach killer, so maybe you're confusing the marriages with the amount of coaches he's killed off.
Same thing. Here's the deal with Cutler, and I'm going to use your own terminology. He's a syphilis-infected prick.
Well, say it the right way. It's syphilis-infested penis.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. No, Jay Cutler, I will say this, Les, Jay Cutler had the most tools of any Bears quarterback.
Why not? He is a tool.
Okay, you got me on that one. No, I mean, he had size, he had strong arm. He just and his teammates said that he was a good teammate for the most part.
His teammates
Not all
are full
of them.
of shit.
Not all of them, by the way. But I don't know. It looked like he didn't care half the time, and he was not pleasant more often than not. And even when he did interviews with all the media, it's like it looked like he just didn't want to be there. And I remember one time I tried to do a one-on-one interview with him, and I went through one of the Bears PR people, and the Bears PR person looked at me and said, "No effing way. You just don't want to talk to him. He won't do it." So that was Jay Cutler in a nutshell. I also remember the one game, and I think it was against, the Bears are playing the Giants coming up this coming Sunday. And it was it a Sunday night game where the Bears played, and he got destroyed. He got sacked. What was it, Aldo?
Was that game at Giant Stadium where he was sacked like 8 or 9 times in the first half alone?
In the first half alone. So if you didn't like Jay Cutler, you're sort of happy that he got pounded into the turf. And they used to say that he wasn't a tough. Listen, anybody who could stand up to that and keep coming back. Okay, so you couldn't question his toughness. You can question if he was a pleasant person or not, but you couldn't question his toughness.
Well, he not only wasn't a pleasant person, he was just a bad player.
Well, he was a player who never lived up to his potential. I mean, he was a good player out in Denver. He had a 4,000-yard season out in Denver.
Jerry Angelo gave him away for absolute.
Well, at the end,
ridiculous.
Well, they gave up 2 first-round picks to get him,
and Kyle Orton.
Okay,
who was a Packer killer. The Packers, one year they were undefeated about 2/3 of the season, and it was Kyle Orton playing out there. I think for the Chiefs at that point. And Kyle Orton actually beat Green Bay. And when he was with the Bears, he beat Green Bay more as a Bear quarterback than Cutler did. And he wasn't even there that long.
All right, our next name on the list, Mike Brown.
Mike Brown, of course, we know 2 consecutive weeks he scored interceptions and pick sixes, and that just had never happened before. One was against the 49ers, and one was against the Browns. So he did it 2 weeks in a row, thinking, same guy, are you kidding me? And you were probably sitting right next to me at that point and wondering, what the heck is this? And that was the 13-3 season that they had in 2001, and Dick Geron was the coach. It was unbelievable. We never saw anything prior to that, and nobody in the NFL has seen it because that just doesn't happen.
Well, certainly that's the thing that stands out when you think about Mike Brown initially is that he did
one of the smartest guys that ever played.
I was just going to say that he was very cerebral both on and off the field. He was also very, what's the word I want to look for? Forthright with his comments, because I do remember going up to Green Bay one time for a Bears game, and the Bears were just horrid in this game. And, as you walked around the locker room after the game, and by the way, the visiting locker room in Green Bay is like a broom closet.
Not anymore.
Oh, they fixed it finally?
Oh, yes, several years ago.
All right, well, good for that. But originally there just wasn't that much room, and you were tripping over everybody. And the players usually, after a bad game, they keep their thoughts to themselves, and they give you the standard crappy answers.
There was a locker room where Ditka came outside, and he was talking to the media outside, and you had a couple of Packer fans that were drunk as a skunk, and Ditka finally had enough. He goes, shut up. And that's a very famous soundbite.
Well, in this particular game, when all the other players are being very politically correct with, and holding back with their thoughts, Mike Brown did not. And he ripped his teammates and, the whole team that after the game. And you know what? I found that so refreshing that here was a guy who stood up, and I'm sure he said it to their faces also, but he certainly told it to the media that day, and I will forever remember that. So, yeah, Mike Brown was just wonderful to deal with.
And Nebraska is not noted as a great academic school, but Mike Brown was a great student, a terrific. I think he was straight A student.
Okay. All right, the next place is a venue. It's the Pontiac Superdome. Silverdome. That's right. I don't know. I got it mixed up.
That was interesting because
that was sent in by Willie Layer.
the Pistons played in there before the Palace of Auburn Hills opened up.
That is right.
And in fact, in '88, the Bears were eliminated. The Bulls were eliminated in the playoffs by the Pistons. Then the next year, '88-'89, that was the first year the Pistons won, and they were already in the Silverdome at that point. Now, Pontiac Silverdome is gone. The Palace of Auburn Hills is gone. They both have been ripped down.
Yeah, I don't really have too many memories from the Bears playing there, but I do have memories from the Bulls playing there. I was there definitely for that. And that was sort of away from downtown, wasn't it, the Silver Dome?
It was about 40 miles away.
Okay, so I was correct about that. And you and I made that drive so many times to Detroit for hockey, for basketball, for baseball. We did it all over all those years. And yeah, that's my only really memory. And then they finally, I think we talked about this on a previous podcast, they blew up the Silver Dome, and and I know a lot of people wanted to push that plunger themselves.
Just recently they took it down. And again, you had the Palace of Auburn Hills, and that's where the Bulls finished off their 4-game sweep of the Pistons in 2001, got into their first ever NBA Finals, and they ended up getting that. But they finished the sweep, and I remember was driving back to the airport, and it was about a 45, 50-mile drive. He had to go down I-75, then to 94 and drive that over. And a couple of people that we were driving with had a big placard that said "Go Pistons," and they changed it to "Sweep the Pistons." And they were holding it up on our car window. And as we were driving down, it said "Sweep the Pistons." Man, I can't count as high as it was how many Piston fans were flipping us the bird on our way back down. It was awesome.
All right, our last name here on the list, and it's the first time I've ever had two venues on the same one, Soldier Field.
Well, it's just Soldier Field, not Soldiers Field, as people sometimes refer to it. First time I ever saw a game there, it was the College All-Star game around 1962 between Green Bay and the College All-Stars. And the next year, the Bears ended up in 64. They were the defending champs, and they played. And you figured, oh, wow, this will be 1 year. But there were a lot of Packer fans that were rooting for the All-Stars, and they wanted to see them win. But later on, as we all know, for years they always used to play the Armed Forces benefit game there. The Bears would play either the Cardinals. In fact, at one time they were the Chicago Cardinals, and then later on. And they also, in addition to that, they played sometimes the Cleveland Browns. Sometimes they'd play others. They wouldn't play Green Bay because Green Bay and the Bears used to play in Milwaukee at the Shrine game every year, and those were very, very tough tickets to get a hold of. But in those days, Soldier Field, very tough. And when I first got to see a game there, I couldn't believe how big it was, because in those days it seated 120,000 people.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't there a game that had 100,000? Wasn't it a high school game or something?
It was a high school game, and it was bigger. They had over 120,000 people.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. They, over the years, they shortened the capacity of the place. They put the end zones and the stands behind the end zones.
The old East stands from Wrigley Field were moved to Soldier Field in the year 1991. That was the first year they played there, and they moved in there. Eventually, they got rid of those, and they rounded it down a little bit and became a lot different. But Soldier Field, the old Soldier Field before they redid it, it was known as the Termite Palace. That place was a piece of crap.
It really was, to be honest with you. It was a dump, and before they refurbished it, and even after they refurbished it, it's still, you can still describe it the same way. But when they put the flying saucer part into that, and for 1 year, of course, we had to go down to Champaign, which was a pain in the ass.
2002.
Also. Yeah, that was fun, getting up at 3 a.m. and trying to evade the cops on 57.
Well, you and I used to drive together.
We did. Who made a mint over all those people? I mean, they were the real benefactors of the Bears playing down in Champaign, because the cops were lined up in Iroquois County and Ford County or whatever, and they just made a mint over the people.
Also, when the Bears used to train before they moved it to Bourbonnais,
Rensselaer.
When they were in Rensselaer, they called it the Chicago 150 when they were on their way, because all the Bear players, they knew the cops were waiting for them on Route 20. And all the cops were out there, and they were pulling people. They got McMahon, they got Peyton, you name it. They were getting busted and pulled over, and they weren't getting off free. They had to pay their way out of it.
All right. Well, other memories I have of Soldier Field, of course, the Bears have been the main occupant over the years, but we saw a Blackhawks winter. What do you call it?
It was
Winter
called,
Festival game or whatever.
No, it wasn't a Winter Classic. That was one of those stadium type games they referred to it, and that was the only game that the Bears ever won out. I mean, the Blackhawks ever won outdoors.
That's was it against Pittsburgh? Was it?
It wasn't. They actually won that game.
It was snowing. I remember. It was weird.
All their other outdoor games, whomever was it, they had one in St. Louis, they had one in Minnesota, they had one in Washington, and the Hawks lose in each and every one of them.
Yeah, the other sporting events that I remember there, I saw the World Cup soccer played there one summer. And actually, that was the best turf I've ever seen at Soldier Field. They must have imported that from who knows where. And then I've seen rugby also played, where the All Blacks, which is the famous team from South Africa.
They destroyed the American team.
Destroyed them is being kind. And, I had to learn. I was doing stats on the broadcast, and I didn't know shit about rugby. And they were teaching me about ties. Well, a tie is not a tie. It's not where you wear around your neck, and it's also not a tie. Like it's the definition of how you score in rugby. And I didn't know anything about it, and I faked it. I mean, I was like the woman in what was her name? Dukakis in that scene. In
Vivian Dukakis?
No, Sleepless in Seattle, where you got
Olympia Dukakis.
It's Olympia Dukakis. She's sitting at the table.
Yeah,
you remember?
Yeah.
And it was Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, and she's faking a orgasm. Okay. I said it. Oh my god. Okay. And how'd I get it off on this tangent? I don't even know.
When Harry Met Sally.
Right.
That was the movie.
Right.
So I'm saying I had to fake it like she was faking the thing to Billy Crystal. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And then Olympia Dukakis goes, I'll have what she's having.
That's right.
It's one of the classics.
Yeah, because that woman was so old she could never do it on her own.
Ooh. And we have another question that just came in from Maxi Pad.
Ironically, what a bloody mess.
I dare you to play this on the overnight show, Wes. I dare you.
I want to still work for a while.
This might get more listeners. They listen. They might love you for doing this. I know they work there.
Management would not love me.
I don't know. Listeners, that's all that counts.
That's right.
Anyway, this has been fun, Les. I don't know when our next show is, but we'll try and come up with some more Stump the Grobber questions from some very weird people.
Have you guys been able to figure out how to calm down yet?
No, not yet.
No.
Wait, well, Imodium won't help with that. What else? What helps over the counter with that?
I just want to meet Helda Dick.
Did you want to correct us on any of the facts, Aldo, or no? No, he doesn't want to do it. He can't stop laughing. So I think it's just best that we say so long, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.